Hi, Elliot.
Hiya. How you doing? Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Good, thanks. Yeah, I'm much better from last week, thanks to some
Good.
hardcore antibiotics. It was quite a painful one in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's good that you're feeling better then.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Thanks.
awful, isn't it? I always think toothache and earache are just the worst. There's so obviously there's pain in loads of other things, but it's something different about those two, and they're considerably more painful.
Yeah, yeah. They really are. It's actually been a while since I've had toothache, so I've kind of forgotten as well. But yeah, Hannah, I must say you have so many nice backdrops in your house. Every backdrop
Oh,
you
thank you.
have, they're always different, but they're always really good.
Oh, thanks. Well, I was moving around a bit actually, but we've recently redecorated the office. I've now got like a permanent place to sit, whereas before I've been sort of like dining room, conservatory, bedroom, just moving around. But now it's like a proper working environment, which is making such a difference.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I know the feeling. I'm actually in the office today, but I've been working from home because we've had work done in my house. So I've been moving from kids' bedroom to, to back of the living room to another kid's bedroom, and yeah, my backdrops haven't been quite so pristine.
So where is the office for you guys?
Liverpool Street.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Hopefully you can visit sometime. It's really nice. We actually moved in the summer from just down the road. We were we were slightly closer to Moorgate, but we're now in Liverpool Street. It's very nice.
Great.
Hey Flavio.
Hi
Sandra.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you all
Hi
doing?
everyone.
Alit, have you recovered?
No,
oh yeah, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much for your wishes. I think everyone sent, so it was really nice. But yeah, it was really painful. But it was lucky I went into the dentist because it was quite a relatively bad infection of one of the wisdom teeth. And so I was on I'm still on them. I've just finishing them today, actually, a course of heavy antibiotics, so it's been better for a few days. Yeah,
Hello, Elliot. Everybody.
Hey, Stefania, how you doing?
Fine, thanks.
Yeah, so I'm feeling much better now, thank you. So this is our last week, everyone. How sad is that?
So fast. Since yesterday we started.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it? When you look back on something, it goes so quickly. It doesn't seem like it will do at the outset, or when you're halfway through. But yes, we are there. This is our final week. So I guess maybe we might have Mark joining in a moment, but we'll make a start anyway, because this week we're going to spend some time talking about measurements. I'll talk about metrics, and then we'll talk about how we can use analytics to help us to do these things, to measure our performance essentially on marketing. On Monday, it was a small group, but the attendees found it very interesting. So hopefully you guys will as well. And then we'll make space for plenty of time to have some more general questions about today's session, of course, but also anything else you might want to cover off. The last group, Mariona, I think you asked the question. Some of the other groups from the other day asked the question about whether they could download slides and things like that. They should be available for download on the LinkedIn group, but as a result of a few people asking, I'm going to put them all in one place, and then I'll also put the videos on YouTube, which is much easier to stream.
I was asking about the videos rather than the slides, but because I already have the slides, but yeah, very helpful both.
Yeah, I'll put the videos, I'll organize them into a playlist on YouTube, so and they'll stay up there. Anyway, for those of you who are using the LinkedIn group, that will stay there anyway. Okay, before I dive into the content, we'll sort of usual format, we'll do a bit of content, a bit of chat, but is there any general questions before we get going? Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. All right. So digital marketing course. This is part 7. Obviously, it's week 8, part 7, but this was always going to be the final part anyway. We were going to use the last week to have a general chat, so we'll be able to do both things today. Okay, so in order to sort of get a grip on the sorts of metrics we use for the sorts of channels and tactics we use, it's quite apt because we can sort of briefly review what we've spoken about over the last couple of months. So first of all, if we talk about the paid digital marketing channels, so we've got paid social media advertising, we've got paid search advertising, and remarketing, which is a form of, can be search, and or social, and or banner advertising. So those banners that we talked about, the so-called display advertising. Remarketing, works across those tactics. But when we talk about these channels now, remember the funnel, the marketing funnel from week 1. So at the top of the funnel, sorry, it must be the right-hand side of the screen potentially as you're looking at the social media advertising. We said that works very well at the top of the funnel because it works. It allows us to describe a target customer or a target group of customers just by how they look like, or from a geographic perspective, or potentially even from a psychographic perspective, so-called demographic perspective, or a cross-section of all of those things. So we can describe our customers, and then using the social media advertising tactics, we can actually reach them with actually knowing who they are, and they don't even need to know us. We can reach them via social media advertising. And for that reason, social media advertising works well at the top of the marketing funnel. We said that search advertising is great for potentially engaging and converting users that are so-called in market. So they're already potentially interested in the products and services that we've got available, because of the fact that they're typing in a search into a search engine. So if we're clever with the way we select our keywords and with our search engine marketing strategy, we can capture people who are actually interested. And the implication is they're sort of, or they're one step down into the funnel. So they're in the middle of the funnel somewhere on their way to making a purchase decision. And then remarketing is we can refer to it as behavioral targeting. So if someone has interacted with an ad, or even if they've been on a specific landing page, we can target those particular people. Again, we don't actually need to know who they are. We can track them via cookies on a website, and then we can send them a specific message. So the remarketing audiences typically are further down the funnel still. And so the key points to remember is, where do the 3 tactics that we're talking about, social media advertising, search advertising, and remarketing, where do they work? Social media advertising works very well at the top of the funnel for the reasons that we just said, because we target audiences by the way we describe them. Search advertising, we can target them by what they're typing in to a search engine. So we can understand their intent based on the sorts of words and phrases they're entering into search engines. And remarketing, we can target them based on their behavior. And because the remarketing activity is further down the funnel, there's a conversion opportunity. There's an opportunity for us to actually, close the sale if we're an e-commerce website, or generate an opportunity if we're a B2B website. So those were the paid channels. Let's talk briefly again about the organic channels. So we've spoken broadly content marketing, creating the right content that's going to resonate with our audiences we can talk about it as content marketing, but actually it is content marketing, but it can be the fuel for many of the other marketing channels, not least SEO. So search engine optimization requires content so that we can mark it up correctly, and we can start to help our website to be ranked, and more specifically pages to be ranked for specific relevant keywords. And over time, this is an organic approach. It's an earned media approach, but over time this can be very powerful. Then we spent 1 week talking about organic social media marketing, and our ability to engage with our existing networks. That it's, for many industries, it can be a great customer service tool. And then obviously PR, the world of PR and generating mentions across traditional media channels as well as digital media channels is obviously can be really, really powerful and requires content in order to make that play. So key points here, just to recap. So creative content needs to underpin our messaging strategy. So we know our audiences, we know who they are, we know what we want them to do, we know what we want to say to them. So that's the content should underpin those three things. And then if we mark it up correctly, we can start to rank for those relevant keywords in the organic search results. Obviously, we need content to be able to share our messages across social media, and indeed to be able to generate PR for our organization. And so the most important thing when we talk about all of these channels is that we should remember that the customer journey, is multi-channel. There are a number of steps that a customer would take before they purchase our products or engage us. And therefore, all of these different, or some or all of these different channels are going to play a role in that journey. And because of the nature of the way these channels work, some of them play a better role at the top of the funnel, creating awareness. Some of them create a better role at working in the middle of the funnel, creating engagement. And some of them work best for converting already engaged customers into either actual customers or highly qualified opportunities or sales leads. So in order to work out the ROI, we need, of a particular channel, we need to know where it's working. And so that brings us on then to metrics. So again, imagine this side of the screen, so the reach side of the screen, that's the top of our funnel. And as we move from reach through engagement, through conversion, through to acquisition, that's moving down through the funnel. So at the top of the funnel, when we're trying to measure awareness, typically with awareness, we want to reach the right people, but we want to reach lots of them. Remember the shape of a funnel, it's wider at the top and thinner at the bottom. So at the top, we do typically, normally want to reach large numbers of people, albeit, we want to be targeted in the way that we do that. So reaching lots of people is great, but an unlimited budget, we can reach the whole world. So obviously we need a metric that measures the quality of our reach, and that is the cost per impression. So we want to reach people, but we want to reach it at an optimal cost. Typically with engagement, it's not the only way to measure it, but a classic way of measuring engagement is clicks. So if we create some content, how many people are actually clicking on it, and we spoke in social media, it can also be sharing, it can be liking, commenting, but clicks is one good metric for engagement. And then again, it's not just about the number, it's about the cost, because we want to benchmark what we're doing, optimize what we're doing. So having an understanding of the average cost per click is important. When we talk about conversion, and in a moment, we're going to talk about how analytics works, measuring what someone actually does on a website, and more to the point, measuring activity that implies that they have converted. So if it's an e-commerce website, has someone clicked the pay now button and have checked out? A conversion might be, have they added a product to a basket? A conversion might be, have they signed up for an event? A conversion might be, have they pressed the apply now button and clicked through from my course page to the UCAS page where they can actually apply for my university course? And there might be any number of conversions. And we have so-called macro conversions and micro conversions, but these are things that we set up on our website typically, and we can track back a successful conversion to a piece of activity somewhere else, whether it's an organic search or a paid search or a paid social ad or any other activity that we can track back to that goal. If we can track the activity and we've got analytics set up with the right goals, we can match these two things together. And then we can start to measure not just how many conversions we've had, but also if we understand what the cost was that we're driving into the campaign or campaigns that motivate that particular conversion, we can measure the cost, the average cost per conversion. Depending on the industry and the setup, if typically it would more be e-commerce plays, but potentially you can actually measure the cost per acquisition of a customer. And in some cases with e-commerce platforms, they're measuring average basket value and things like that. So those are the metrics. I'm going to go through an example which will hopefully sort of cement some of what we're saying here, but do shout out if there are any questions, particularly on this measurement example, because I'm just about to show some numbers now, and I know it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so I don't, please, you don't have to follow everything to the nth degree, but the key points, make sure you follow these, and do shout out if you don't. Okay, so here's an example. So imagine we are a marketing department, and to keep it simple, I'm going to use a simple example. We're a professional services business. We want to sign up. We've got a really key event, and then we know if we get the right people to this event, we know further down the road we're going to get some sales for our high value product or service. And so our objective is to get up to ideally 100 people to sign up for this event, 100 of the right people, because I've got specific buyers in mind. And because we know that events, we want 100 people to attend the event, because we know if we sign up people for events, always people will drop out. So we're going to go for 120 signups, and the assumption is that at least half of them will come to the event if we can get our 120 signups. And we've decided that we're going to create a promotional video, and we're going to do some LinkedIn advertising to send that video to create awareness with the right target potential customers, target profiles. In the case of LinkedIn, we're going to send people to a landing page. That landing page is going to sell the benefits of signing up for the event, and obviously have a link to a sign up form. And we're going to market to those people before and after the event. So we've said that our strategy for this closed campaign, and the question came up on Monday, so let me clarify now. We're talking now about a closed campaign so that we can discuss the sorts of metrics that we would use to measure the sorts of tactics to measure, and then we can look at the campaign as a whole. Normally, we would want to apply this to everything that we're doing in our marketing. So all of the campaigns that we're running, in an ideal world, we could have a holistic look at everything. Obviously, most marketing strategies, certainly everyone here, there's a lot to them. So for the purposes of today, we're just going to talk about this narrow example. So we're saying that the awareness is the LinkedIn video ads, and we're also going to run Google AdWords. For conversion, we've decided that we're going to run LinkedIn advertising, we're going to run AdWords, and everyone who lands on the events page but doesn't sign up, we're going to create a remarketing audience using analytics and Tag Manager, which we'll talk about later. And we're going to put that remarketing audience into a remarketing campaign that will send banner ads saying, remember, we've got this event coming up. There's 2 weeks to go. There's 1 week to go. Sign up now before it's too late. So that's going to be the conversion focused activity, is going to be the remarketing campaign. So let's imagine now that the event has run and the results have come in. And so first of all, we got, these are the channels across the top here. And these are the results in terms of metrics and impressions and clicks and signups. We'll talk through those in a moment. But in general, if you add up the conversions, which means signups, we've got to our 120. So we had 50 that came via organic. So it means they just went to our website via an organic search, or they went directly to our website and they signed up. And so using our analytics, which I'm going to show in a minute, we see that we got 50 signups from the organic channel and from the direct channel. From the remarketing campaign, we got 50 signups. From the AdWords campaign, we got 10 direct signups. And from the LinkedIn video ads campaign, we got 10 signups. This is how much money we spent on the advertising campaigns. This £4,000 is a notional amount of money that we spent, on resources, internal or otherwise, to get the video built, the landing page set up, and everything working together. Okay, and here's the number of engagements, and here's the reach. So the question is, there's 3 questions that I want you to consider. The first is, what is the overall cost per sign up? So that's important because we've come up with a strategy. Well, first of all, we've got an objective. We want to get some new customers in the door. And the proposed way that we've decided to do is we're going to run an event. So we're going to get the right people to the event. We've spent £24,000 and we've got 120 people signed up for the event. So the cost per sign up, which is a good benchmark to start with, on average, across all of the channels, is £200 per sign up. So that's important, because if this is a strategy that we're going to run every year or every quarter, we now know, assuming this is the first time we've done it, what it costs us to get someone signed up. So we know that we can spend £200 using this type of strategy to get, we can spend, I beg your pardon, £24,000, and we'll get 120 sign-ups. That's 200 sign up. So the next time we run this event, we've got a benchmark for what good looks like. Again, what we don't know, because of the nature of this business, is how many of those sign-ups will turn up to the event. We assumed it's between 60 and 100. We also don't know how many of them will end up being highly qualified opportunities and ultimately sales. Presumably, hopefully, we will know that further down the line if we use our CRM to track that activity. And so eventually we might be able to work out a cost per acquisition. At the moment, we can't do that because we don't have enough data. So the next question is, what is the cost per sign up for each channel? And then which is the best channel? So in a moment, I'm going to ask, I won't pick on anyone, but I'll ask an open question: which is the best channel? And we'll go back to the data now. I'll just talk about the cost per sign up first. So 10 sign ups from the LinkedIn video, £10,000. 10,000 divided by 10 is £1,000. So the average across all of them was £200. The LinkedIn video ads is £1,000 per sign up. So these are sign ups that happen directly as a result of watching that video. AdWords, 5,000, 10 divided by 10 is £500. 5,000 divided by 50, the remarketing is £100, and 4,000 divided by 50 happens to be £80. I did the maths earlier. So those are the numbers. So I'll throw it out now to the audience. What is the best channel?
Is it the organic?
Yeah.
No.
So the clue is, it's a trick question. But objectively, Stefania, you're right. But it's the reason it's a trick question. I'll give you a clue here. All of these channels work together, and more specifically, why did the remarketing work? Let's park organic for a moment. How did the remarketing work?
Because you'd captured them before with the other strategies. Otherwise, they wouldn't even have found out that you existed.
Exactly that. So Stefania, you get that right. So the AdWords and LinkedIn sent people to the page. Remarketing works by saying all of these people, and we had 2,000 people who landed on the page, but of those 2,000, only 20 signed up directly. That's a direct conversion. But the assumption is that we remarketed to those 1,980 people that didn't sign up directly. And what we're saying is, because of the nature of remarketing, it's a very specific audience. These 50 signups almost certainly came from because of these clicks in this particular scenario. Does that bit make sense to Stefania, but also to everyone else? So then what about the organic? So the question is, where did the 50 organic signups come from?
Well, it's a similar thing in that if it's organic, they were already either looking for the topic that you're promoting, or they already knew who you were, so they went straight to it. So you need to have captured them in the earlier stages. So it's all part of the funnel that you always mention.
Yeah, that's a really, really good answer. I want to add one really important point here because this came up on Monday, and it's really important. So when Mint Twist or any digital agency, or if you're operating it yourselves, when you go into the ad platforms, they will typically report direct conversions. So that's where you can see, I put an ad, someone clicked on it, they bought straight away. There's something else that the platforms allow you to track, and that's called assisted conversions. And assisted conversions typically means if I run an ad, a video ad on Instagram, for example, and someone clicked through to my website, they didn't do anything, but then, and you can set the time limit. There's a maximum time limit, but if they come back, for example, within a week, so 6 days later, and then they completed a trackable goal, then that would get shown as an assisted conversion. So for simplicity's sake, I haven't really put that in here, but what we would normally see is when you run an advertising campaign, particularly if it's an awareness focused one, you'll get a limited number of direct conversions, and you'll get also some assisted conversions. Now, what the ad platforms can't track is if, I, as a user, I'm on this particular computer and I see an ad and I engage with it, and then I go home onto my home computer that's on a different IP address with different cookies, and I'm not logged in with my work account, it's very difficult for the ad platforms or analytics to connect those two sessions and say this was an assisted, but it's an untrackable assisted conversion, if that makes sense. So, and really, here's the thing that's really important. When you run something like a TV advert, a traditional TV advert or a traditional newspaper advert, if you do that activity, typically you can't. It's not like digital activity where you can connect and say, because of that activity, I got this many sales. But what you will get is an uplift in organic traffic. You get more visits to your website, and this, what PR teams will typically do, and Sandra could probably talk to this. You get a piece of news that goes in the press, and then you get a big lift in organic traffic. Now, it's very clear that the reason you've got that lift is because of that marketing activity. And so the same is still true of digital advertising, because although the common understanding is that everything is trackable, it's not actually the case that everything's trackable. A lot is trackable, but assisted conversions typically not all of them can be captured. So the real answer to the question around what's the best channel is that there is no best channel unless we get much more information. What we really want to do is dig into the remarketing activity and understand, if we can, where did that remarketing audience come from? And then we might be able to say, well, actually the LinkedIn video was better, built 80% of the remarketing audience, and AdWords built 20%, or vice versa. And then we might be able to say, well, LinkedIn is better for awareness, or AdWords is better, or both of them work equally well. And on the organic, similarly on the organic channel, what we want to do is measure the organic traffic that we had in the absence of a campaign, and the organic traffic that we had as a result of the campaign. And we might again be able to sort of come up with some more subjective insights about what works and what doesn't work. So broadly, this campaign has worked in the sense that it's completed the objective, but really what we want to do is draw some insights based on digging further into the data, react to those insights the next time we run the campaign, and then we will have some more clear idea about what works and what doesn't work. Okay. To summarize then, so the conversion path the idea was the first touch was going to be the Google Ads and the LinkedIn. And although we got some direct conversions there, we got 10 and we got 10, because of the nature of, particularly if it's an event, we might be targeting someone who might want one of their colleagues to go to the event instead of themselves. We might be targeting someone who doesn't know if they're free or not at that particular time. Moreover, if you reach someone with a message, typically you've created awareness, but you need another touch, or that at least they would need more time before they are going to decide that they're going to make the next step and actually find out more, firstly, probably, and then ultimately, hopefully sign up. So we need that second touch, and using remarketing, we can amplify that possible second touch. And then the third touch is actually getting people to convert. And as we've seen, that they can come back via organic channels. It might even be that they were touched with a LinkedIn ad, touched with a Google ad, and touched with a remarketing ad, but still they came back of their own volition with an organic search and converted, a bit further down the line. So just bear with me. There's just this last slide on metrics, and then we'll break out and have a proper conversation. So the KPI. So the point is, because LinkedIn and AdWords are there not necessarily to win the conversion, but they are there to create the awareness. We've got to use the appropriate KPIs. So this goes back to the metric. So if you're trying to create awareness, as we mentioned at the start, typically we're trying to create reach, and then what's the average cost per reach? So the typical way of talking about this is CPM. So it's cost per 1,000 impressions. So we had 500,000 impressions here. It cost us £10,000. So that's £20. That equates to £20 per 1,000 impressions. So whatever we thought about this LinkedIn activity in terms of its ability to generate a remarketing audience, we know that that's a benchmark number for creating awareness with that particular audience group. So those job titles that we're interested in. So that is a benchmark for the next time we run any similar activity. AdWords, obviously it works quite differently. And with AdWords, we're trying to create actual engagement. We want someone to actually click on our advert and go to a page. That's the point of AdWords. So we wouldn't use impressions here. We would use the clicks. Clicks is the important thing for this type of channel. And we got 2.5, sorry, there's an extra zero there. That should be 2,500 clicks. So 5,000 divided by 2,500, it's about £2 per click. And again, by itself, that gives us some information, but really this is about comparison. So the next time we run a similar campaign, targeting similar keywords and similar geographies, that's our benchmark number. Remarketing, as we mentioned, the job of remarketing is to get the conversion. So we don't really care about the clicks. We want the conversions, the actual sign-ups, to be as high as possible. So in this case, we would track a cost per conversion. So 5,000 divided by 50 is £100 £100 per conversion per sign-up. The organic channel. So if you remember in week 2, when we were talking about web pages and content marketing, we spoke about conversion rate. So if 100 people land on a event sign up page, the most important thing we want people to do on that page is sign up. So if 2.5 people per 100 sign up, that's a conversion rate percentage of 2.5%, which is kind of average for across any industry, and that's our benchmark for that particular page. And so when we run this campaign, assuming we run this campaign next quarter or next year, here's our benchmarks for us to sort of achieve and overtake. Okay, I've spoken a lot and I've thrown a lot at you. So let's ask a nice, easy question, or preferably any questions you want to throw at me. I won't pick on anyone, so let's keep it open. And I'll stop sharing for a while.
I can start.
Okay, go for
Oh,
it.
sorry.
No, I'm happy for
It
someone else
is,
to start.
it is super important, and it most recently it became even more important because of ROI and in our current budget review and how we can get for next year, blah, blah, blah. The stakeholders and the board, they want to see what's actually happening with the money, obviously. And we have to measure basically everything, but it's very hard. And Elliot, we are doing all these things, you know, cost per lead. We know how many leads we need in order to generate the amount of applications we need in order to have our enrollments. And we also know cost per lead, etc. But it's really the difficult thing, and where I'm stuck is this assisted leads, the organic one. How can we prove that in a way? But because, as you said, not everything is trackable. And at some point, like 1 year ago, we had a theory: 1 paid lead gives us 2 organic leads. But this year is a different case, and Corona came in, you know, so that theory was overthrown. So it's these organic ones or assisted lead is really, it's really hard to crack this in terms of our AI perspective. So that's my, if anyone has an idea how to do it, please. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll sort of give a stab at answering that, but before I do, is there any related question? Because the good thing about being on the Wednesday group is I can see the questions that were asked on Monday, and I can and I can bring them to bear. And we went deeper into this topic and some related ones. So before I dive into that, anyone else, any comments? And I'll answer everything together. I'll try to. So the short answer is it is really difficult. And before I sort of talk about some ways that you could do it, let me also give you some important information. So some of you might be aware that Apple iOS 14 more specifically, so the operating system for iPhones, have introduced some updates that essentially allow users to opt out of tracking for Facebook advertising, which incorporates Instagram as well. And broadly, anytime anyone launches any app where there's any amount of tracking, iOS is going to pop up things saying, do you want to be tracked by Facebook? Yes or no? And the assumption is, and the early data says it's true, that the vast majority of people are going to say no, and they'll opt out. And what this is going to mean, it's going to mean that assisted conversions and direct conversion tracking for Facebook and Instagram is going to be, you know, even lower, even harder than it was before. So when your digital agency, who it doesn't matter who it is, when they report, they are not going to be able to report as many direct conversions. What it definitely doesn't mean is it has no difference to the actual conversions you will achieve, but it will have a difference to the like, let's say, guaranteed absolute cast iron conversions that Facebook, in this instance, Facebook advertising did achieve. Google Chrome is just about to do something very, very similar, but on Google Chrome. So iOS 14, it affects a lot of iPhone users, not all of them, because not everyone's got the latest phone, but eventually the assumption is it's going to affect an increasing number of iOS users. If Google Chrome goes through with what they're saying, it's going to affect a really large number of users. Google Chrome is essentially saying it's not going to allow tracking on its browsers, which is a very popular browser. So the bad news for people who really want and needs tracking is actually it's going to get harder, not easier, because of well, in this case, it's the companies, essentially Google fighting against Facebook and Apple fighting against Facebook, but also there's regulation coming down the line. So we've spoken over the last few weeks about, the ability of these platforms to sort of follow us around and stuff. So governments are looking into that. There's sort of tax revenue is one aspect they're looking, but they're also looking at privacy regulation. So those are the challenging things. But having said that, if you can get a really good handle of analytics, and the reporting that comes out of the ad platforms is good, you will be it is possible to draw insights by comparing period on period results and campaign on campaign results and year on year results. And the good news for it was good news for the people on Monday, and hopefully it's good news for here. It's like, and actually, even though I'm a digital marketing person, I would be really happy to see this, because there's been this like avalanche of people moving, like dumping all of their offline activity and going into digital. And I do think that some of these changes are going to temper some of that, because it's part of that avalanche, not all of it, but part of it was it's very clear to me, if I put £1,000 into digital, I get £3,000 out. And that's, obviously any finance director is going to sign that kind of thing off. It's a no-brainer. But it doesn't mean that if you put, £3,000 into a traditional, billboard, maybe you get £3,000 out of that, or maybe as an awareness play, maybe there's a really, really strong part for that. Or, if I can get my story into the relevant, traditional press, what kind of awareness uplift does that give me? So because I think it's going to sort of level the playing fields somewhat. But in terms of measurement, in the next section, we're going to talk about analytics, and Google Analytics will, if we sort of can get reasonably comfortable with using it, can go a long way to helping us and having comparable sets of data. That's the best answer I can give at the moment, Alice. I don't think it's necessarily exactly what you wanted to hear, but it's the best one for now.
That's okay.
Okay. How important is measurement for other people? I just want to get a quick handle. And how much do you do at the moment? Hannah, I saw you unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think us, we're very much in a corporate environment and have a history of that, certainly in the UK. So, with us, any budget, anything that's going to be spent, we have to have the full paper around that to explain the rationale, to explain the background, to explain the risks that we've considered. And essentially, we wouldn't get sign off on it unless we could predict what that return would be. So, really important for us. And I think it's a really interesting point that you mentioned just then, Elliot, about actually it being harder for us to be able to prove those conversions and those assisted conversions in particular. So it's really interesting just sort of thinking ahead as to how we'll do it with Kinto Join. And I think we might have some challenges in that respect, not being able to necessarily get the right measurements and the right data to support the case.
I'll give you an example of what came up on Monday, because I think it's Noops, right? Remember Noops is the chocolate company. Most people here won't know them because they're on the Monday session, but they're going to send everyone, all of you, some vouchers for free hot chocolate, completely free hot chocolate, because she said she was going to do that again. So that will be coming in an email to everyone. But they said that they've got this thing. So they hired like an old kind of ice cream van that they were going to sort of drive around. I don't know it was going to move around that much, but they could park it in a place, buy a permit, sell some Noops hot chocolate via this ice cream van sort of thing. And it was as much about creating awareness around the brand than it was generating an ROI, because they were going to lose money on this activity. They would sell some hot chocolate, but hiring the license, hiring the van, getting a couple of people to sit in the van for whatever, how many weeks they were going to do it for, we're going to lose money. But it's all about how that van is going to eventually motivate people to know the brand, to recommend the brand to their friends, to buy the brand, to buy some more of the brand. And so, and then it sort of dawned on the group on Monday. And really, this is, I don't know how well I get my messages across, but the first part of this session was supposed to say that if you look at something either on a channel by channel perspective, or even worse, as a campaign only perspective, then you're very unlikely to get a decent understanding of ROI. Because just because a single campaign, or even more so a single channel, doesn't give you an ROI, it doesn't mean that it's not feeding in assisting either whether it's trackable or not, assisting to sort of later conversions. So I would say, Hannah, the really important thing for you, but pretty much for everyone, is understand your whole strategy and understand how all of those channels work together, and try and get a total view of what's going on, as opposed to looking at something in terms of a specific campaign. And if it takes your customer 2 years to make a decision, particularly if you're a new business, you're really only going to know how your whole strategy works unless you run for 2 years, like the lifetime of an average customer journey, because you'll never track the person who you reached right at the start of their journey until that 2 years has elapsed. And then even worse, in a way, you're then going to have to wait another 6 months to compare, or at least another 6 months to compare a 2-year period versus a 2-year period from today's date versus 2-year period from a date further back in history. And then you can make, are we improving? Are we flat? Or are we going down? Yeah, and obviously in between that, what you're trying to do, and this is where the trick is really, the individual channels and the individual campaigns, how are they working to do their particular jobs, and what changes can I make? And we just got to resist making changes too quickly until we've got a complete picture.
Elliot, a question about the ice cream ban, but can you ever measure whether it worked or not? Losing some money like that, whether in a year or 2 years, this money, can you ever know whether it really worked or not? It was worth doing it, losing some money, but had a return in a year's time, or not, or it's just a guess?
Yeah, I mean, there's guesses and there's educated guesses, and
of course, yeah.
So I think, look, in the case of Noops, it's a bit easier because obviously it's a chocolate brand, so their customer journey is way shorter. I suppose I'm speaking. Actually, pretty much everyone on this call are going to have longer customer journeys. Everyone than a hot chocolate brand. So the other thing to say is their brand's growing, they're in growth mode, they're investing into the brand. So it's kind of easier for them just to kind of try these things. But their opinion is it's experiential marketing. They do have some evidence that when they open a physical shop, they get brand awareness. They have grown their brand as a result of opening a physical shop in several locations in London. So they are viewing it as, look, it's not actually a physical shop, but it's another physical place where our brands can get exposure, and we can move it into territory, into areas where we think that our customers are going to reside. I have to say they're dovetailing it with digital, so they're doing some what we've recommended, doing some geo-located targeting advertising around that location. So they've got the touch point of seeing the van, but also getting some. Hopefully getting some touches from some geo-located digital advertising as well. And so I would say, in answer to your question, Flavio, it's an educated discussion. And Sandra might be able to talk to us. PR teams will typically, when they get a bit of PR activity in the press, they will look at analytics over the next days and weeks, and they will measure the uplift in terms of organic visits to a website. And that's another way of doing it.
Yeah, and I think it's a hugely complex thing to do, right? I mean, as an agency for us, there's some added complexities with sometimes not, having access to Google Analytics for certain clients and things like that. But overall, it's such a complex journey for a lot of clients, whether that's kind of consumer facing or more B2B trade. That is something that's really fascinating. And we do have a planning, research and measurement practice at Finn, who kind of try to really look into that in more detail, and also working with Elliot's team. There's a lot of different ways to try and understand that journey, and kind of try to, I guess, bring different sources together to then hopefully get a clear picture, or a kind of at least partially complete picture of the entire situation. But just kind of, we're all consumers, right? So it's really hard to even understand why we buy something, or why we kind of realize, oh, you know, this is hot chocolate, I want hot chocolate. So kind of like doing that for someone else is complex, but I think that's what makes it so fascinating. And from the PR point of view, you know, that's something that we try to give different clients, and we try to find good approximations for it. But it's one of the main challenges, I think, for a lot of marketeers all over the world. I think if it was easy, someone would have solved it by now.
Yeah, because that's the big problem for us to measure, as you know. I mean, we are not selling, so we are just promoting. And how do I know if at the end of a campaign whether that was the right one or not? That's, I mean, of course, the impressions, the awareness, but at the end of the day, at the end of the funnel, we don't get there, so we don't know. Yeah.
I might have asked this in one of the earlier weeks, Flavio and Stefania, but do you measure like number of like flights into or beds booked in Italy, hotels or something? Is
yes,
that...
yeah, we do. We get all the data from the Italian National Office Statistic as well as the British one. So plus now and then we buy some trends from Skyscanner or these companies. But yeah, we do, yeah. And then also in details, of course, I mean, how many were hotels or Airbnb or all the detailed ones by age, by gender, by education or income. Yeah.
The thing about, sorry, go on.
No, I just wanted to say, so obviously anything that is not online is difficult to measure, really. Anything that we do online, influencer marketing or Instagram sponsored post, or what we did with you as well. Obviously, we ask for the report from the company that does it for us. We don't actually do it in-house. But I mean, we don't have to apply ourselves to extract the analytics. We ask the company.
Yeah, of course, yeah, no.
Obviously, the head office in Italy, they do measure because they have centralized Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, etc. They do measure themselves, whatever, you know, their activities. Obviously, as Flavio was saying, anything that is offline is not online. Then it's difficult for us to see eventually how many people will eventually be inspired to buy holidays in Italy. So it's very interesting to know how you measure it. You know, this lesson is very interesting. Although we wouldn't do it in-house. You know, we would always ask your company, for example, if we do it with you, to do it for us. But it's important to see the results, you know, of the money we spend.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, look, in your particular example, actually an example of, again, of everyone here, it's not easy, right? It's really not easy. And you got to be a little bit careful because at some point you don't want to spend more on the measurement and reporting than you are on the actual activity. So you got to get the balance right. Yeah, but for example, I think probably Alice, I'll use sort of Richmond. There's a lot of campaigns that universities run, digital campaigns, paid advertising, organic, you know, and the other things they do. But they've got this strategy that runs over, you know, ideally an 18-month period, always to get an intake every single year. If we're talking about undergraduates in a similar time of year. They will have to apply at a certain time, or, you know, make their final choice at a certain time. And there's this like rhythmic process. So in that instance, yeah, and Alice, it would be interesting to hear how much of this happens, but you do get the opportunity once a year to sort of look at everything that happens, make a year-on-year comparison, and kind of have some objective insights. And Sandra mentions there's a lot of like really powerful tools, and Flavia, you've mentioned some of them, data sources that you can draw data down from, and by cross-referencing some of these, but also crucially making these period-on-period comparisons, it becomes feasible for you to sort of tell a story to, you know, to budget holders or decision makers, whoever it is we have to speak to. Alice?
Yeah, it's a bit, I mean, I'm with Richmond University since 2 years now, and they only started, that's the funny part, having a digital footprint 2018. Very laid back and behind, let's say, in a way, right? I have to admit. So we don't have really much data to look at, but you can see before when there was no digital activity, it's flat. There's nothing really happening on Google Analytics. So the moment you switch on and you go online and switch on the advertisement, you can see it just goes up. And then when we switch off, if we go offline, let's say, you can see it flattens again in Google Analytics, the traffic. So, I mean, we can compare. But then we had Corona as well, which tried to compare. 2019 was a good year, and then Corona came, which was not a good year. So now we're in 21. So it's even hard to now we're comparing back to 2019 in a way, because 2020 is an outlier somehow. So it's but yeah, sometimes we do even month to month, or when we know we have been offline, you can see. It's very obvious. Once you run activities, you can see it's happening, It is happening. We can't be offline anymore in a way.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the case for some online has been made by this course. If it would, that's good.
No. That's all. But now we get there like this, because it's past 2 years, and our director, my line manager, she is very into, cost per lead, cost per acquisition, digital. Then you have the recruitment channels as well, like the event channel and agent channels to justify everything.
We've obviously worked with so many different organizations. There are many big organizations that actually have been running digital for quite some time, but many of them haven't had their analytics set up correctly. So they don't have, so don't think that you're alone here, Alice.
Okay.
However, it's the case. It's kind of what we're saying here. It's very difficult to make accurate decisions unless you've got accurate data on which to base them. So until you do, you've kind of got to, it's like what we were saying to, like Flavia was saying, you kind of got to make an educated guess and, pull your strategy together and just put your best foot forward and kind of commit to it if possible. Obviously we can tweak, and we've been learning about that for the last 2 months, how to tweak these individual campaigns and maximize the chance that they work. But ideally we will have data. And so the next component, the next part, I'll talk now about analytics. Alice, just before we go into it, Alice mentioned a really good point. The thing about Google Analytics, it only starts working when you turn it on. So if you don't have analytics on, you can't go back into the past. It starts when you turn it on. And the same goes for goals. So I'm going to talk about what goals are and what they mean, but a goal is probably ultimately the most valuable part of analytics, because it's what allows us to at least as far as we can see within our website, what is the most important thing we want a customer to do, and that's how we track them. So if we don't have the right goal set up, again, you can set it up tomorrow, but you can't look back at last week at what happened with that goal. Goals only start tracking data from the day you set them up. And I suppose what I wanted to say is there are lots of companies that have been doing digital for a long time, lots of companies that have analytics up and running. I would say the vast majority of companies still don't have a really clear setup of analytics specifically around their goals, so that they can measure the holistic performance of certainly everything they're doing on digital, and drawing down on other data sources that Sandra was referring to, be able to approximate what the offline activity is doing as well, based on the activity in a website. Okay, I'll stop talking theoretically and just open up the slides, because that's probably better. Okay. So just so again, so I can get a handle, hands up if you haven't been inside Google Analytics. And on Monday, it was everyone. Stefania hasn't. Everyone else has. Flavia hasn't. Sandra has, Alice has, Mariona has, Hannah has. Okay. Just out of interest, Hannah, Mariona, Alice, Sandra, how well do you know analytics, or how often do you use it?
Me, not well at all. I've been in it and I've tried to understand it a couple of times, but since I started working with you guys, I've left it all to you. The matter of time. I mean, it's been on my list to get properly trained for a bit, but just haven't.
Alice?
Same as Mariona. It's on my to-do list really. I only know surface level.
Okay.
I know what I'm looking at in terms of traffic, between the if I want to compare data sets, you know, a little bit.
Okay.
Look at the sources, but I'm not really satisfied with my knowledge. So it's like it's something I would like to know more about.
Okay, cool. Hannah?
Yeah, very much the same. I've sort of been in to have a look around, but I haven't really done much else with it.
Okay, Sandra?
Yeah, I kind of trained myself on it a few years ago. So this is like maybe 4 years ago, where I kind of did their courses, etc. So I've done like, I guess, I don't know what the basics are, but like things like, you know, setting up goals and things like that. So kind of, I think I've got a relatively like good working knowledge.
Okay.
But because I did this for B2B, it was never really looking at the kind of e-commerce side and linking it up in that way, if that makes sense. So that's,
no, it does make complete sense. So look, so I'll sort of go through. We're only going to scratch the surface here, so I'll go through basics, but also I'll talk at the end about some of the more detailed stuff and Tag Manager. But obviously, for those of you who know it, or for anyone, please do just ask. You know, if you've got specific questions, just ask it. Okay. So Google Analytics, the thing to know is, I'm going to show some screenshots in a minute. So for those of you who haven't seen it, we'll show some screenshots. It's a software system that is connected to our website, or any intranet property, you know, via some code. So we can imagine it's a software system that's built by Google, I should say. So Google owns this software system. It's free to use, literally, for everyone. Once it's connected to a website, it's going to start to track lots of things about how that website is used. Specifically, it's going to track, and I'm going to move to the next slide, it's going to track acquisition information. So what that means is it's going to tell us, how did people get to that website? Did they come from a Facebook ad? Did they come from Facebook organic? Did they come from a search engine? Did they come from a link from another website? Did they just type in, did they come directly by typing in the URL? Did they run an organic search and come? And it's going to give us a lot of detail, not just about where they came from, but, you know, specifically where. And if we're running something like advertising, when digital marketing people talk about tracking, this tracking code that will connect to advertising, and it would even tell us which particular ad did they come from, and obviously what day, you know, what time, and all of that kind of stuff. It's anonymous. It's anonymous. So by itself, Google will not tell us that Joe Blogs came onto our website. It's just going to tell us that particular person. It's also going to tell us how they acted once they got onto that website. So once they're on there from wherever they came, what pages did they look at? How long did they spend on that site? It can tell us, as we'll see in the end, incredibly detailed information about what buttons they clicked on and how long they hovered over a picture, and so on and so forth. And those are called behavior reports. So there's acquisition reports, all about how people got to our site. Behavior reports, all about how they acted when they were on the site. And then the idea of conversions is that if we set up goals, and we'll talk about them, you know, in a couple of slides time, then we can, and broadly speaking, as we mentioned a few times, the goal would be, I want someone to click on this apply now button. And if they click on that, I want Google Analytics to fire and say, that's one goal that's been scored. Or I want someone to click the buy now button on my e-commerce website, and that's one goal that's been scored. or I want someone to fill out a form and complete their details. And that's one goal. So you can have different goals and set up a number of them. But whenever a goal is fired, I want to be able to track all of the people who, I want to track all of the sessions where that goal was completed. And I want to look at them from the context of their behavior and the context of their acquisition. So I can start to learn the people who come from Instagram are more likely to do this type of thing and have this type of behavior. So I can create reports that where I can draw down these types of insights. And so the ABCs of Google is acquisition, behavior, and conversion. And in terms of the way that you use it, going back to the slide, that we just mentioned, you can look at measurements. You can look at reports. There are hundreds of reports, and you can create bespoke reports. There is so much data inside Google Analytics. But the important thing is that we don't get too buried in the data, because it's very easy to get buried in the data and go down these rabbit holes. But actually, let's measure something. Let's go into Google Analytics with a question. Let's get the data that we need to answer that question. Then let's draw an insight. Let's decide, an action that we want to take. And typically that's going to be making a change either to something we're doing in our digital marketing or potentially a change on the website itself. And we let that run for a period of time, and then we measure the difference. Did that change have the result that we wanted? Have we improved our marketing? And that's broadly how we want to use Google Analytics. So acquisition reports, as mentioned, which channels are people coming from? Which websites refer traffic? So a really interesting one for us to say is, which websites are sending traffic, to our website, because very often that's going to be interesting, and we can tell a lot about search as well. So hopefully you can see this okay, but like I said, we can only scratch the surface here, so I'm just going to show some screenshots. But this is an example of a channel report, and a channel report is probably the first one that you would do inside the acquisition set of reports. And typically it's going to break down the channels, top level channels. So we've got organic search. This means people have typed in a search phrase in the search engine, and as a result of seeing our result, this number of people have actually clicked on our site. So 44,000 people have got to our website via an organic search. That means 44,000 people clicked on a search result within the time period that we set, and you can set whatever period you want. 6,000 have come direct to our site. So it was either in their browser, or they typed in the name directly. A referral is a really interesting one, particularly if we're looking for opportunities. Referral means another website that's not Google search, another website had a link to our website, and they clicked from that website and they reached our website. So those are referrals. So for the Enit website, for example, you will very likely be referring lots of traffic to lots of partners and associates that you work with. You will be generating a lot of outbound referrals. When you look in your own analytics, you'll be looking at people who are referring traffic to your website. Social, as the name implies, this is all of the traffic that's coming from the social media networks. Email is email traffic, and paid search, if you're running any, will show there as well. The important thing to say is you can always drill down in analytics. So if I click onto social, it's going to tell me, it's going to break it down by Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and it's going to order it in descending order of which channel sends me the most traffic. So you can tell numbers, but as we move along here, for those of you, hopefully you can see, it's going to tell us things like the bounce rate. So bounce rate is the percentage of people that land on the site, look at one page and no more than one page, and then leave again. So traditionally, you want bounce rate to be lower rather than higher, because lower means more people are getting onto a page and then they're continuing their journey through your website, which is what we want. Pages per session is if they come via the organic channel, they will on average read 1.28 pages. So an average person is going to read just over 1 page. However, if they come via an email campaign, they're going to read over 2 pages. It's quite normal if you've got an email list, typically it's a qualified list. So if you send an email to people on your email list, they're going to be more engaged. So a larger number of pages per session means that that group of users is more engaged with your website. Similarly, the more time they spend on your website is an implication of how engaged they are. So look, in this case, we've got our goals set up. So these are the things that we want people to actually do. So this is saying the percentage of people who complete a goal when they visit our website from organic search is 0.5. You know, that's not particularly good as a benchmark. But if I run, in terms of referred sites, so websites that link back to me, people who come via those websites are 3 times more likely to convert. So it's telling me that my referral traffic is more valuable than any other channel except for email. Now, that would be great, except the problem with email is it's a very small number. So yes, the conversion rate is high, but it's a small number. So I can't really rely on that. So if you were looking here at low-hanging opportunities for this particular client, I would click into this referral thing. I would look down and see which websites are referring traffic. And what you invariably find is, it's the 80-20 rule. There will be a handful of websites that are referring really valuable traffic to your website that is converting. And the low-hanging opportunity would be go and find more versions of those websites, if it's directory sites or if it's a particular type of site, and get more of those links, get more of those relationships, and or reach out to the websites that are referring traffic to you. And is there more we can do with you? Can we have some sort of joint event? Can we create some content, you know, together? So that's the way you would use that that sort of report. You know, here's an example of the, you know, the referral report. It's going to give you a list of the websites, and as you can see, you can get some really big differences. This particular website is sending really valuable traffic. 15% who click from this website onto the website that this analytics is working for are converting. That's way higher than any of the other channels, any of the other referrers. You can get information on search terms as well. So which search terms are driving the most amount of traffic? You know, as we mentioned in the SEO week, the majority of your traffic will come from branded search terms. So your brand names will be high here. And it's going to be interesting for you. What are the generic, the non-branded search terms that are driving traffic to your website? Behavior reports. I'll sort of jog through these last slides and do shout out, and we'll also go into Q&A. So remember, behavior reports are how do people act on your website. And one of as we mentioned, there are loads and loads of reports. I'm giving you the main ones here. One of the main ones we'll look at is which actual pages are the most popular. So when people get on my site, which pages are they looking at? And the backslash will be your home page. So, you know, for almost everyone, that will be your most popular page. And the default is, you can organize this in any way you want. The default is number of sessions descending. So the second most popular page for the Mintswiss website is Meet the Team. If you're an agency, you know, that's quite normal. Contact us. For us, that's the page for if you're a professional services company, you want people to contact you. So it's great that that's our third most popular page. The insight, the opportunity here, particularly if your organization has been creating hub content, so blog content, this type of content that we can use from an SEO perspective to capture traffic. So if you see a blog page that's particularly, you know, popular, in this case, you know, this is the Mintswiss site has thousands of pages. You know, this particular blog page, you know, is way more popular than others. It means that this page is ranking. Typically, it would mean that this page is ranking very well in search engines for some specific terms that would obviously be related to this specific article. If you see a page like a blog article that's driving a lot of traffic to you, it's an opportunity for us to leverage more of that traffic. So I'll show you in the next slide an example of how you would do that. So you would have a look at that actual page. And in this case, there was an article that was written by one of our team years ago about Google and Naver. So Naver is the South Korean equivalent of Google. It's their main search engine in Korea, in South Korea. And this article was just exploring, how, the differences of how they work. And it's a really popular article for people wanting to find out more about Naver, because there's limited information on the internet about this, and Google's ranked this particular blog site very well for that. So what you would do is, as we said, if you remember back to week 2, you create content that's going to be interesting for your audience, and you also want to mark it up so that it can rank for search. And if you get a real winner like this, where there's a lot of search traffic coming in, even more than you would expect, then you want to have a look at opportunities that you could use to leverage more of that traffic. So maybe we would want to write a new version of this article, a 2021 version of this article, and have a link at the top that says, want to read the latest version, click here. Or would you like to learn about how you can market to, how we can help you to market to customers or consumers, in South Korea, or want to learn how you can advertise on Naver. And so put in some specific call to actions at the top of this article, knowing that there are a lot of people who are coming not to find out about Mint Twist, but to find out about Naver. It might be an opportunity for us to convert some of that traffic, or more specifically, engage some of that traffic, so that when they're ready to convert, we're actually, in their list. Another 2 important reports that kind of work together is understanding entry pages. So how people actually get into your site. So most people will come in via the home page. If you've got your SEO working properly, then there will be other entry points, because you'll have individual pages ranking in search results, and people will be coming in via those pages. So for the reasons we just discussed, knowing which of the popular entry pages is important, so that we can engage that traffic. But potentially, depending on the nature of the page, we just want the right content that's available to people who are landing on our website for the first time. In most instances, our homepage will make it clear where people can go. If we've got another page where a lot of people are coming in, we might want to think about how we can make some adjustments to that page to welcome people into our website. Similarly, exit pages. So where are people leaving? We exit pages that are good exit pages. So, if you're Alice and someone's on a course page and they click the apply now button and they go off to an application portal, that's a good page. We want people to leave from there. If you're professional services, you want people to leave on contact us. But there will be pages where you don't necessarily want people to leave. And if you've got large numbers or abnormally large numbers of exits from those types of pages, you might want to think about reorganizing that content so that we can entice people not to leave, at least in such large numbers, relatively large numbers. So the final thing I want to talk about is alongside, so Google Analytics, there's a lot to it, as I mentioned, but in terms of goals, there's a limited number of goals you can actually have in analytics. I believe it's 20. It was 20. It is 20, unless something's changed very recently. So for complex websites, in fact, going forward for many websites, there's way more things that you would potentially want to track, certainly if you're running a lot of advertising. And so in order to do that, there's a system called Google Tag Manager. And Google Tag Manager goes alongside analytics. It's been developed more recently, and it allows way more detailed and specific and nuanced targeting to happen. And so it connects to your website and to analytics in a very similar way. And very broadly, it's going to map every single element, which means a button, it means a piece of text, it means an image, it means a video, literally all of the things that make up your website. If we want to, we can put a tag on something really specific and say, Tag Manager, I want you to listen or look at what is happening to that particular element. So oftentimes it would be a button. So if I want someone to track a specific button click, I can put a tag on that button and say, track that button. And this allows us to be much more nuanced about how we track activities, and once or behavior rather on a website. And once you've got Tag Manager set up, you can create goals that relate to specific tags. So the things it can check are button clicks is a very obvious one, but it can also it's also sensitive to the time it's taken. So if someone's hovering over an image, it can track that. And if someone hovers over an image for a certain period of time, you can have an event fired that would be potentially tracked as a goal in analytics. If someone moves towards an X button, if they're going to close down the window, you can trigger an event and have some sort of activity happening off the back of that. So you can get really, really specific with Google Tag Manager. I'm conscious we haven't got too much time, so rather than me talk anymore, I want to open it up to the floor. You can ask any questions about obviously what we've just been talking about, but moreover anything, because I'm very sad to say this is the last week and we're in the last minutes of the last week. So we'll open it to the floor.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank you. I think it was a really insightful series of sessions, I guess, and I really enjoyed them.
Well, look,
yeah. No, I was going to say exactly that, and I was going to say as well, I like how, at the beginning you sort of get the strategy and then you go into each of the pieces, and then today it all comes together because you see why every part of what we've talked about becomes relevant in the end. So I really enjoyed that.
Thank you both. I want to say it's been a really genuine, sincere pleasure to do this with all of you. It really has. And yeah, so look, I want to thank you. I learn a lot from running these, and with this particular group, I feel like I've learned a huge amount, and I've got to know you a bit better than I did already, which is also lovely.
Thank you so much, Elliot. And for me, it's been very interesting. Many things I probably won't be asked to do, but it's good to know them, good to understand also the reports that I'm sent. It's quite an in-depth matter, if you really want to go deep into it, you should spend quite a lot of time, trying and reading and studying. But you've been very succinct, and it's been very, very helpful for me. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Same from me. Yeah, thank you very much, Elliot. For me, it was a good refresher in a way. And sometimes I wonder, and I don't know if someone else has this feeling. I mean, my job title is head of marketing in a way. I do a bit of everything. I'm more like, and then you have these digital people. Because sometimes I feel like I know what you taught us, or what we were talking about is like, I mean, there's so much into it when you dig deeper. But I suppose this is an extra skill set, and I shouldn't really be worrying because you have all these digital people around you as such, right? Or the agency. I sometimes wonder how much I should know in detail. As in this Google Analytics, I know the surface, but then I wonder I should know much more. But then it goes very into details and gets very technical.
Yeah, I want to say actually, particularly for Alice and Hannah and Mariona and Sandra, but also Flavio and Stefani, if you want to learn more about analytics, because I do think it's the one. If you are gonna dig in, it's probably that more than anything for your role, Alice. So I've just put in the chat a link to Google has an Analytics Academy University. And if you click on that link, the first sets are the beginners tutorials. So what I've just given you, they'll kind of give you that, but a bit more as well. And I would, a couple of other people, 2 people on Monday asked for that. And I would encourage you to look at that if you want to know more about analytics. But I think both what Stefania just said and what you've just said, Alice, is absolutely right. For me, particularly for you two, but for everyone, I think on this call, probably the best value is from this course is that you don't need to be, you know, you can't really, hopefully you can't be overly bamboozled by tech jargon, because you kind of know how these things work. And I think that is, you know, I think that's quite powerful. And yes, of course, some of these are specialisms, right? You know, like a lot of specialisms exist in many industries, but actually we as marketing managers, you know, don't need to understand everything to the greatest level of detail. We just need to know what good looks like, and we need to know the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
Well, to thank you as well. I mean, repeat, and then thank you very much. I mean, as Stefania said, probably we won't be using everything, I mean, directly, but good to know. I mean, when I speak to an agency or to anyone, at least I know what KPI is. I didn't even know that. So, no, it's really good to know. I mean, to understand as well. I mean, this new, which is fairly new for us. I mean, we never used this digital marketing until a few years ago. So thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure, Flavio.
And just to mirror basically everything that everybody else has said, just thank you, Elliot. It's been really, really interesting. I know from talking to Lucy, she's loved the Monday session as well. And I think it's been great, like Stefania said, just to get a kind of really good overview. There is so much depth behind it, but I think the way that you've summarized it's actually made it really easy to understand. And we'll be able to then apply that. And even if it's not doing it day to day, because I'm not a technical or digital marketeer, but just being able to understand it, I think the way that you've done it's been great. So thank you. It's been really, really great, really enjoyable, and lovely to meet you all and talk to you all over the last 8 weeks as well.
Yeah, lovely to meet you all.
Yeah, you too. Sorry, I did forget to say, Mark told me at the start of the session that ironically he was finishing up a marketing plan that had to go out today, so he couldn't come. But yeah, he's also enjoyed it very much. I think it's been obvious. He likes chatting and discussing a lot of things. So
yeah, you know what, I want to say before everyone goes, I've really enjoyed each one of you. Thanks again for, you know, for the nice things you're saying, but more importantly for joining. But I what we're going to do is run not like full-on educational sessions like this, but definitely want to have the get-togethers where we can have this, where we can discuss either trending topics or up-and-coming topics. And we might do these virtually, but you know what, I really hope that we can actually do them in person in this Liverpool Street office. And I'm really hoping that we can maybe do a special one where all of us can get to meet, you know, in person, because, you know, not all of you, but some of you, half of you I haven't actually met in person, which is bizarre. So I'm really hoping that we get to do that soon.
See real people.
Yeah.
Real food.
Yeah. So we will be doing that as soon as obviously we're allowed to, and you know, I'll say do look out for some invites for me. And look, the final thing to say is I will follow up with an email to everyone that kind of collates everything, and I'll put it in a document drive somewhere, and I'll put links to the videos. Bear with me, that might be next week with that, but obviously either now or next week or next year or in 5 years time, whenever you want to have a question, please just email me or LinkedIn me, and it will always be my pleasure to help if I possibly can.
Thanks, Elliot. That's very generous.
Thank you everyone.
And hope to meet you soon. Hopefully like lockdown does end of June, and then we can all meet.
Yeah.
Happy Easter to
Yeah.
everybody.
Easter.
Happy Easter. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.